So welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for October 26, 2022. We'll follow the agenda, which was tagged in the issue in the repository. It was issue number 169, and I'm just opening up the agenda. Add the recording. And I'll paste, well, actually, first I'll paste the link. If everybody can add themselves to the, maybe you already did. Yep. If you can, people can add themselves, that would be great. Oops. Just adding myself. And we will get the Okay, so we'll start off with looking at the things that are tagged with the agenda, and then we can go from there. First one is get the Collaborator Summit attendee list so we can do some follow-on discussions. I think like yesterday sent an email asking for that because I know there was a follow-on that Anthony wanted to start. So anyway, Michael has asked for it. The next one is the draft metadata proposal for docs. So I know, Claudio, you put together quite a good proposal. I don't know if this time does it make any sense to do a quick run through, or do people have questions? What's the best way to kind of discuss that one?
Yeah, I think I could give a quick run through, and have questions. Shot.
Sure.
Does it sound fine?
Cool. Sounds good. Go ahead and share if you want to.
Cool. Let me share my screen then. Let me just reduce the screen size because I have an ultra wide screen here. Is it readable for everybody?
Yep.
Cool. So a little bit of context for the ones that are hearing about this for the first time. Is introduction, but basically this is a proposal for changing/updating the whole structure of how our API docs are structured, how you have the metadata of them, how we structure the photo structure, how the docs get generated, the building around it, and also navigation, internationalization. It's basically a whole proposal trying to create a specification of how our API docs can be better. For introduction, it basically says the current problems/issues that our current API docs have. I will not go through them here because it's very easy to read on the issue itself. But basically the proposal is about 4 major changes. First, separating what we call the metadata, the actual definition of a module, from the Markdown file. So you have a dedicated YAML file which defines, for example, what are the methods, what are the constants, what are the return types, what is its stability, etc. And then you have a respective Markdown file which is like description, examples, footnotes, or anything that is relevant for the humans reading it.
Just a quick question, and I can't remember, do you have anything in here about keeping those two in sync?
Yes. So one interesting fact is, so let's go a little bit down. So you might imagine if I update the metadata, right, and I want to add a section on the Markdown file for that metadata, how did you get linked together? So the idea here is to use a feature from Markdown called heading ID. So basically, if I'm writing a section on a Markdown file, or I'm talking about a specific method of, for example, fs promises, basically everything that is needed is for me to create a reference of what is the metadata entry for it, and automatically, supposing that this is the name of it, it will append after the section. So basically, in terms of generation, you have the title, the heading, then you have the metadata, all tidy nicely, etc. on the way how we have on the website today, for example. Then everything that is extra, like description, examples, blah. Yeah, and also important to mention that this is also what is used for as the hash on the URL or the URL itself, depending of the level. Does it answer your question?
Right. I guess I was just wondering, like, somebody goes, they add a new section, they forget to put that in, what happens?
Yeah, so suppose you have, I didn't write anything about this specifically, but this is something we can definitely add on it, like it's an ad hoc, but suppose we have a linting tool and they add a new, let's see, method here, for example, a new method. And if I didn't write anything in the Markdown file, we could generate a warning, hey, we have an orphan method on the metadata that is not in the Markdown. A warning because you might still be writing the method, it might still be a draft, so you don't necessarily want it to be in the Markdown. So that's another, I think, neat thing is that, of course, in the best world, you want to have a one-to-one match, but you don't necessarily need to have. So it allows you to to write things in the metadata and not have anything generated on the final docs if they're not ready yet. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I was just more for like the case of like, hey, I don't really understand any of this. I come in, I add a section and I forget to do something. How do I quickly learn, oh, wait a sec, I got to do something else?
Yeah, I think one of the important tools that will be here is documentation. So for the explanation of what it is and also guides, adding a new method, we should have proper documentation about things and a reviewer's guide, like checklist of everything that we can give to the newcomer and also for the reviewer. So they're like, oh, okay, I added this. I did this. Oh, I didn't do this. Okay, I didn't do this. So let me do that. I think.
I just like, is it like, if you look at that heading, will the tool basically, so I've added that, so I forget to put that in. The tool will easily tell me that, like, hey, you forgot to put that in.
Yeah, the thing is that not all of your headings need to be related to something that is in a metadata, right?
Right.
Which is like, if you put the heading ID, then it will correlate. The thing is also, and one of the things that I definitely want to have in the future on PRs is preview branches, automatically like CI, like we have Node.js adapt that gives you, this is a preview of your change set, only of your change set. And then you will see, wait, where is the metadata that should be related to this? And then you go, oh, I probably forgot to add the heading, which is one of the bullet points list. But ultimately, it's a thing that reviewers, because we are all human, in the end need to be like, okay, this is missing, this is not missing. But I think with the structure, it eases the process, it makes it harder for you to forget something. But in case of you forget, if you actually forget something, it will be easy to know, oh, I forgot something.
Yeah, I just wonder if, like, maybe, and I'm taking it down too far, but like maybe it should be that, like, for any heading you have to put something, even if it's like does not need any metadata or something. I don't know. That way you can't forget to do something like that. But sorry,
you mean, for example,
description. Yeah.
No worries. You mean like if I add a heading, actually needs to have a content, even if it's a text?
Well, it's more like we rely on, if I added a new heading and I did method : something and I forgot to put those curly brackets, I'd end up with a method that's documented but no metadata, right?
Yeah, but then it would be easily.
And I can easily see somebody doing that. Okay, blah blah blah. I'm just focused on my task. I'm adding my section. I don't know anything about the docs. Whereas if there had to be if like for every heading there had to be an entry, then when you ran the check doc, it could tell you, oh, wait a sec, you added this heading. There's no tag. If you don't need any metadata, just put in this no metadata tag or something, right?
Well, the thing is that the heading IDs are also used for the URL generation. So if you forcefully add a no metadata hashtag, that's like what would be the like HTML ID of that heading ID. So what we can do, is if, for example, you add a heading that doesn't has an ID, I mean, that's also pretty much valid YAML. Sorry, Markdown. I think this is something that we can definitely come up and discuss like as we go, because there are a bunch of solutions from linting, from enforcing, and if the heading ID is no metadata, then ignore, for example. I mean, there are a bunch of things we can do, for example, to enforce, that things are consistent. But I believe those are like, this is just a draft proposal.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm just asking because I know one of the things that people have sort of raised the concern of is like, if you have to know too much, like you have to be an expert on the documentation structure to contribute, that's not so good. So it's like, I think the more our story can be is like, you really don't need to understand anything. And if you miss it, we can easily help you. Then,
Definitely. Yeah.
Just where it's coming from.
Another thing that I also want to leverage, the DX here is there's a feature that both JSON files and YAML files can use, which is actually, it is what would be a similar of a TypeScript type. It's like XML-NS, like a namespace or something that you actually say, this kind of YAML file follows this structure. So as they write in the YAML, they have IntelliSense, and this is cool because then they autocomplete and it shows description, what is this? Which ultimately is like the reference of this table, right? What right. is, it's like you have type definition for your YAML file or something like that of a sort. But yeah, I think, of course, to reduce the entry barrier here, it's very important that we have nice documentations and this thing doesn't get too convoluted. And I imagine that if I'm a person that I'm just adding something new, I would just like copy.
Right. It's just like, I think you have really good documentation here. It's really that I don't even know I need to do anything as a first time person, right? And can we catch that and help them and say, well, and here's the documentation. I think like that even, it's just that, anyway, I think we're on the same wavelength. So just keep on.
But I got it. It is an important point, definitely. I will try to remind myself of writing something about this. Think of orphan entries just on a text file here, so I remember later. Cool. So going back to the proposal, where were we? Okay. The second item is a new folder structure. So instead of having all the documentation files on one big massive directory, which even for indexing, or reading, it gets too big. You have a folder structure that is like, for example, API, V18, modules, name of the module, name of the import. You have a more like structured folder directory, which is as shown below. So this is an example how it could look. So basically, this is an example folder structure. I will always explain how the navigation works, which is the third item. Basically, you have a more nested, folder structure, if you say so, which is more organized. You have things separated nicely, and that's it basically. And actually, to be very honest, the building tool doesn't rely on your folder structure. Like it doesn't matter the name of the folders and in the level that something is. And that's where the navigation system kicks in. Here where I leverage a concept of actually, you have a main navigation entry with a markdown file, right? Where you can refer, for example, specific entries, and then you can reference other navigation files. Imagine this as a dynamic imported navigation. So every time that you refer to a navigation file, it imports the contents of that navigation entry, file, and like maps. So suppose you have, here navigation entry for modules, right? Which is this file here, and then you have file system streams. Then you have the navigation file for file systems, right? The output, generated output in Markdown will be something like all of this concatenated, and it follows also, the order that you specify things on the navigation file. So it's very neat because in the end, it's the navigation system just as any other Markdown file, which is just, a list, Markdown list, and this is also indexed, let's say, by the building tool. So the idea here is to, be simple, and something that is already easy for people to do in general, which is Markdown. Yeah, and here's basically, the bullet points explain how the navigation system works. But that's basically the third thing, So you have the new metadata system, you have a different folder structure, right? And you have a new navigation system. And finally, you have the build process. So the idea here is that the core build tools for documentation, they will basically aggregate everything, parse everything, and then it will just split it out, for example, in MDX or, for example, JSON. It depends, like you basically, everything is in a buffer, and then you can pipe different output generators, like, for example, JSON, MDX, HTML. So, you could kind of say it's like a plugin-based system. And this is cool because you can have many different outputs. JSON for the TypeScript team, MDX for example, for Node.js dev, pure HTML for legacy stuff if you need, for example, or for example, branch preview when you just want to have the pure, HTML output of that doc, with basic styling, if you say so. Yeah, and basically, short term, this is what the whole proposal is. It's very well documented, including the translation parts, the types, what each one of those fields is, whatever. Everything is very well documented, and I really invite anybody, to give a read on it and make questions. A lot of
Do you
questions.
have an example of what, like, say, taking one of our existing docs and converting it to this would look like?
Like a final example, no, but I could say, for example, imagine about FS promises. You would, for example, have here navigation MD, promises YAML, promises.md. I can maybe create just a final example how it would look, but
That would
it's
just, like,
basically all of this.
so for the, like, say, the internationalization part, that might help. Like, I guess I've seen a bunch of internationalization cases where, like, the contents look significantly different than they do today. And again, it's one of those things that requires more people who are writing to that to know what they're doing versus just writing the text, right? So that's
exactly. I think there's two things on internationalization here. So first, we have what we would call ICE, which is, you have translation keys, and basically by default, when we make the first mass run moving from the old infrastructure to the new one, which is basically all automated, like it's explained below. It will all default to English. So it would create tags based on this, if you say so, and then generate the default English files for all these things. Of course, a few things cannot be generated, like, for example, tags by default is something that probably will be empty. I mean, I could probably leverage, text extraction tools, like IFTF, to generate those tags, right? It's not complicated. We do that on Node.js dev. But for the pure Markdown files, it's like each Markdown file, is, for example, something.m.md, or which is the default English language. People can translate those files, but of course, just by separating the metadata from the Markdown file, which is like the description, the examples, doesn't mean that it makes it very it doesn't remove the technicality, which is translating technical content. So people that are translating that still need to understand what, like, the technical terms and what they're translating. And that kind of complication, if that's what you're referring, I don't think can be removed.
Like today, you just write your text, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I have to extract, like if I'm not just writing the paragraph, but I'm writing the paragraph with a bunch of tags, and then those tags go into another file. Like,
oh no, the paragraphs they appear on the. So the thing is that, imagine that this is how the markdown would look. You don't have any translation keys here. Translation keys are just for the metadata. And the thing is that we want to remove maximum amount of text as possible, for example, from the metadata. But there are cases that we need to give details. So for example, think about the history of changes of a method. For example, added new parameter, or this method was removed on this version, etc. We have that history table, on our API docs. That thing can't be in the markdown, it needs to be in the metadata, but still really cool if co-translate. So here you can either provide, a translation tag or just write in English. It's up to you. I would recommend to be a translation tag. And this translation tags for the metadata, for the initial run, they will be generated. So it's like it will extract the content from the original changelog tables that we have on our current APIs. It will create a tag based on, the naming of the files and etc. To have an initial run.
So it's just the metadata that would have those tags in it. The actual markdown files would still be just pure one language.
Plain text. Yeah, plain one language. Yeah. You would have one different file for each language, which is similar to what we have here. So one more concrete example would be maybe learn. We don't have translated yet, but you would like have promises.m.md then promises.fr.md.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Does that kind of answer?
Yeah, that it's okay. Because I was thinking like when you've got all the tags, does all the markdown, but it's just in the YAML. And I think what you said is like somebody could start with it just being English, but then we could then externalize that separately. So okay.
Yeah, and it's something to be very honest, will take time. But I think it's good that the translation happens not only, but like you have all the metadata removed from the actual markdown file, because I believe that description, introduction, and examples is something that changes slower. It's not something that will require that many translation updates over the time. At least that's what I imagine. For example, the about file here. This is the same text for many years, right? I mean, of course, it's a completely unrelated example, but it's not like, for example, every new version of Node.js, we're going to change the description of what the file system module is, like introductory text or the examples. And if the examples change, I suppose it's like maybe if it's a new field here or whatever, it's something that then on the other translated text you just copy paste, because we don't translate snippets, right? So I believe, at least in terms of translating, the actual human readable text, the actual thing that introduces someone to a module or to whatever, will become easier because we don't have all the stuff on there. That's my take, at least. It's also important to mention that API docs are not just pure module documentation. We will have pages like, for example, error handling in Node.js. Like, for example, we have here, API errors. So for example, you have a page which is like, it has classes also, but it's not just about classes, I think. I mean, there are a bunch of pages here that, for example, diagnostic channels, this is not a module. It is a module, but it's not just about the module. It's like more like a descriptive way of talking about a module. Okay, my point here is that
even like the add-on one is a good example of
C++ add-ons. Okay, yeah, exactly. like API docs aren't just about modules.
Yeah.
So that's why not every Markdown file needs also a YAML file, but it just you can leverage, your Markdown with the metadata, right? So that's why the heading IDs are also like something that you add if you want. If that makes sense. Yeah. That's basically it. Yeah.
The other question I'd have is like, is there a incremental or is it going to have to be a big bang?
So I think making incremental will create a lot of complexity in our existing infrastructure. The idea here was to be a big bang, but in the sense that creating a tooling that can make this transition from all the existing files to the new format is not hard. Actually, there is something similar already in place for Node.js dev, and basically would require a few tweaks here and there and etc. I mean, it's something that would take a few months to be worked on, to iron out all bugs, all the edge cases, if any. But even if it's a big bang, what we could do is we have this new temporary repository which has all the new things, or we could have, a bunch of different PRs. First FS module, then this module, then this module, then this module. So people proofread, each of the changes, and then they just merge, right? So basically, the tooling code make a big bang, but creates a bunch of different PRs, and then we go on each on them, right? And then only when we have everything merged, then we create another PR that is deleting the old, replacing for the new, for example, so that we don't need to review everything at once, because I think that the issue with Big Bang changes is just we will have a massive PR with thousands of changes, right?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Like it's hard for somebody to take the time to review the whole thing.
Yeah. So it definitely makes sense to have the building, the tooling that moves from the old to the new code basically just use the GitHub API to create a bunch of PRs, right? And then we could even have a repository, to test this thing, so we don't actually, accidentally create thousands of PRs in Node.js node. That would not be nice. But yeah, I imagine that if we, decouple, instead of being having one big PR, having smaller PRs maybe for each class even, or each file, I don't know, each combination of file, for example. One PR per file that we have inside the current API folder, I don't know. That could also be feasible, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was just asking because like the more incremental, like the earlier we can get people reviewing and learning about it, the easier it is versus spending 3 months and then getting all the, hey, well, what about this and what about that? And
Yes, I think that when we're creating the tooling, so for example, not only the tooling for migrating the stuff, but also the tooling that will be the build tooling for the new stuff, it's very important that we have constant examples being generated so that we can have, continuous interaction on the spec. For example, okay, this is how this looks now. Maybe if we change this, so we don't have in the end just all the files, even if it's many different PRs being generated, but then the issue is actually on the specification itself, and then everything needs to run again. So definitely it's something that we need to be continuously iterating and reviewing while we're creating the specification, which will be originally created by the migration script, right? And also the building tool. But yeah.
Yeah, like in a perfect world, we could somehow like migrate one module and then slowly migrate each one. But I can see that, and that's probably tough from like generating half of it one way and half of it a new way, right? So
yeah, even more because I mean, In the perfect world, we code yes, make the new tooling to basically also create an HTML output that is exactly the same as for Node.js with org. But then there's also the thing that Node.js dev would also need to have something intermediate. So I mean, if I could just take one step back, and um, there are many steps that are here, from beginning to end. So first, this is a draft. So first we need to iterate in the specification itself and start creating the migration script. With the migration script, we could even make already those pipes that I was talking about. So basically you have an MTX output, which is for Node.js dev, and a pure HTML output, which is probably compatible for the existing Node.js.org website. And then yes, we could generate one module and see how it looks. I'm more, if we do this path, which is completely fine, I'm more concerned how we merge those things on the existing websites, because I have no idea where actually the HTML on the website is generated. Like there's not a GitHub action inside Node/Node, that actually pushes to the website. I don't know. And basically would need to override for this file, actually pick this, which could create complications because you're mixing different things together.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. I
that's
don't know
why,
off the top of my head the flow that we use to
yeah,
generate that. And
that's why having a play repository where we can even, build, HTML or MDX, like I said, if the issue is generating a module and reviewing it, I mean, to be very honest, we could do everything on a play repository. So we can review things there. So once we created the PR on Node.js/Node, it's basically just like, yeah, how the review happened on the play repository, because the content is the same, then we can safely merge on Node. If that's the place where we want to keep the docs, because there was another thing that we also told here, which is versioning the docs, which is basically right now, I mean, we have a little issue with is we have only one state for API docs, right? So of course everything is versioned in Git, and we can just push the tag. But the thing is that even if you push a tag, the docs there get generated the time that last published. So like if you update an existing doc from an older version, it will never get published. Only if you manually like somehow send to the archive, like publish manually to the archive. The idea here is that from now on, docs they have their own repository where you have V18, V19, V16. So if you added one version, it's fine. I'm not sure if it even makes sense what I'm saying.
I
but
guess I'm like, it's pretty easy today because like the doc is in the stream and like it's versioned along with the rest of the code. So my gut is, and I is it's going to be more complicated, harder if you've now separated those into somewhere else. Right? Like it's right now, it's if I want to find the docs for a particular version, I know exactly how to do it because I know how to find the code for that same version, and it's all in the same repo all together.
Yeah, wait, I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, I was just saying, like I think today being all together has some advantages in that, like, if you want to find the version of the doc that was as of a certain version, it's just in the same tag in the repo versus somewhere else that you might get out of sync. And so like keeping things together has some benefits on that perspective.
No, definitely. I think the issue that I saw some people commenting on having only like on Git, you have like basically the latest version available to see. Of course, you can navigate through the history and etc.
Yeah.
And maybe just because I don't understand, how the build process works. But if I make an update, for example, to a previous version of the doc, for example, for V18. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, V12. Suppose it, I don't know, a security patch happened, and and then we need to update that version that is already end of life. I don't know. Imagine, or V14.
Yep.
Okay. And then we make a change in the tag. Does it get published to the V14 docs page automatically?
It should. Like, there's no reason why that can't happen, right? Like, we should have on our like the way I don't know, but like in my mind, the way that works is like if something checks out a particular branch, and so it can always check out the latest 14, 16, whatever. It runs the process, like there's a make doc make file target that generates the output, which then gets sucked into what's published, and that gets copied to a certain directory somewhere on the website that is for 14. There you go, right? So I think it, that, or at least that kind of flow should work, that, so, and if you have that run so that it says like, was there a change? Okay, we need to run that and republish it. But actually it's more, yeah, I'd have to look at the infrastructure to see how that works. We don't tend to go back and change like a 14.1. We would never change the doc for 14.1. We would issue 14.2, which has updated documentation. You know what I mean? Or 14, we never patch an existing version. We always like do Assembler, it's going to be in patch or major, right? And so
if a patch happens for the docs, it's always because a patch happens for a version. Makes sense. And then a new version gets published.
Right. That's our current model, right? Is like, even if, say, you didn't change the method, but you realized the doc was wrong, you would have so it all starts in the main branch, and then things flow backwards, which is again something, people may raise as a concern, is like, if we change the world, there'll be a breakpoint where, like, if you change something in main, it can't flow back easily, right? So things won't go back to earlier versions of as easily as they did before. But yeah, today the model would always be, you make updates, and we've got those different streams, but there's always a new version published to get those new updates.
Makes sense.
I think that like you've got some pluses and minuses, right? You can't change, say, the doc without doing a release, but on the other hand, it's one less set of release cycles and whatever to think about and coordinate. And
yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think if this works currently right now, I think maybe adding more documentation to it, because I don't think I saw anywhere explaining this process.
That is something where we should figure out where that, is it documented? If not, like, documenting it somewhere. That's where, kind of like when we talked earlier, like even just having it the existing process well documented would help us a lot.
Yeah, it's also something that I haven't had time yet, but it's on my list to document the current process. Actually, let me add this in my text notes so I don't forget again.
Yeah, because things like the least change we can do at a time, like if we propose changing the whole structure, changing where, like, is it together or apart, like, the more that is, the more discussion there is and possibility of concerns and stuff. So like keeping the docs in with the code would be my suggestion to start. Now, that could be completely wrong for whatever reason, but like, just changing the structure but keeping it all together seems like a big enough step on its own, right?
Sorry, what you're referring to?
Like if you propose a new structure for the docs, right? But that new structure can all live in the same repo with the code.
Oh, yes. If right. That, my concern was actually just because of the versioning. But if that's actually not an issue, yes, it should live together with the code. It should live in the same repository. Yeah. This is something that I will remove then, this section here, versioning docs. Let me, what about here? version from draft and check where is existing documentation for that. I don't, like I mentioned, I don't think I saw anything on Node regarding, for example, patching docs for older versions.
Yeah, no, like it would always, right, like how would you, or even maintaining the docs, is there a doc in there? I don't know. Or how the doc generation process, like maintaining the doc generation. I don't think we have a document there, but that would be quite good to have.
Yeah.
That explains the flow, right? And like
Yeah.
because my understanding is based on just what, having actually, used the doc sometimes and stuff. And
yeah, because the thing is that how it works, at least on the old documentation website, when you go, of course, here it only shows the major.
Yeah.
But it always refers to the latest minor. But
right. And I think that's our model, right? Because it's basically saying we're going to give you, that is the most current documentation for 18.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Definitely, I'm not questioning this. What I wonder is, since now 19 is the latest, if I make a push, assembler, to 18.13, will then it update in the website, to be when I go here 18.13? That was my curiosity. That's why I voted versioning docs.
I think it
wasn't
should.
sure.
Like what's the latest? If we look at Node.js, Node.js.org, and I go to downloads, like the latest download is 18.12, so that's completely in sync. And just go to go to 16, because like 16 is the previous LTS.
It's still shown as LTS here. That's the thing.
That's maybe a mistake that let's see. I'm gonna
so when I go to 19 docs, it still says it's 16 is an LTS. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, so that's, let me just.
But if you go to Node.js dev, it doesn't do the mistake. So if you go to download, it knows that 18 is already the new LTS. But that's just because how we get the information is differently. But it should, on Node.js.dev, we also have this thing that it will always update to the latest, as you can see here, for the 18.12.
Right. Yeah, the latest is 16.18. So what was that doc that when we went to 16?
Latest 16, 18.
Right. So it has updated to 16.18, which is the latest 16. So we keep those up. The LTS, and it's still LTS, so that's right. It's just not the latest LTS.
Oh yes, 16 is LTS, but it's not showing 18 also as
yeah, 18 needs to be, but 18 actually, like that's probably just I think it went out yesterday.
Yeah, but the thing is that I think it's already here, index.json. LTS hydrogen. Yeah, it is already LTS. So it could be something. It could even be that maybe on the old doc building tool is a manual file that you need to write which version is LTS. I have no idea. Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. Or it's been 1 day since it was published. Like it was published late yesterday. Maybe the tooling hasn't run yet for the on the.
Oh. Doesn't it happen like every time that we have something going to master?
I'm not sure. It's possible. Yeah, that's possible too. That there's like a webhook or something that says, hey, there was a new push on that branch, and therefore we're going to rerun and generate, is quite possible.
Yeah, it could even be that maybe it's on the, where was the table of contents? I remember there's a talk file here.
Anyway, we're kind of getting into the weeds, but
yeah.
There's like a webhook or something that says, hey, sorry, push on that branch, and there. So I guess we've used most of the meeting. So I guess, does anybody have any other questions or discussion on the proposal? I think we need to continue to get feedback and stuff into the issue itself, right? And
yeah. Oops, I lost the issue. But yeah, I lost the issue, but it's somewhere. But yeah, the thing is that I think next step would be to get more traction, like more people from the TSC to actually review that. Take time when they have, because no rush on my side, to be honest.
I personally think like having that like an actual rendered example, like what would that directory look like? Would help a lot, because you read through it's a very good proposal, but like just being able to open a few files and see, oh, well, what does for an existing one, what does the text look like? Oh, that still looks like what I wrote today. Comfortable.
Yeah. I could definitely make even a mock repository on my own personal GitHub, just inventing how it would look or something like that.
Just for like the simplest, even like one module, right? Like, and yeah, just with the 4 or 5 files that you've listed in the example.
Yeah. This is something that I would need to do manual because I don't have any tooling for it right now. But
Sean has his hand up.
Yeah, no, just really, if you do that, I would love to piggyback on that to try to find a way also to have a good way to handle internationalization part, because doing everything and every language in the same repository will be quite hard, I think. And if we are able to just split every file, I think in the build part, we'll be able to pull everything from other repository quite easily also. So could be interesting to check that.
Right. I guess you're suggesting, like Jean, yeah, that there was a process to say this is what it looks like. You could copy those files in from somewhere else. It's just
basically that. Yeah,
in part. Okay.
Just because we do have like 9 minutes left, 8.
Yep.
Just for next time, I try to add some some idea of question for the survey on the issue.
Which one do you want to jump into?
Yeah, next 10, next survey.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
So that's 152, right?
I think so. Let me find it. Yeah, 152. Yeah, indeed. Just added a few example of question. If some people do have more feedback on question we should ask or remove, just jump in the issue.
Right. So here's
just the idea, because we wanted to try to send the survey before the end of the year. Could be great to have at least a full list of questions we can review for the next 10 meeting. That way we'll be able to send it, let's say mid-November, around that part, and be able to have a feedback before Christmas.
Sounds good. Yeah, we definitely want, if we're going to send it out, it would need to go out like, I think, early December, because you're going to start losing people once you get
because around the 20th of December, everyone will be doing something else. So it could be great to send it before. And also on almost the same matter, it's a bit linked. I also updated a quick way, and I will have a better way to visualize that on a multiple feedback during the Dublin Collaborator Summit on both Easy Retro we did. And
is this the one you were talking about? You put in
let's see. Yeah. Also, and just basically on some part which were really great, we did work on a lot of issues which were something which was a feedback from the community and collaborator during last year. So like HTTP Undici. Also started to discuss about type and TypeScript, which are great. And also we did push a lot, or trying at least to have a starting conversation about improving everything around diagnostic. But I think it still remains some core issue, and I think it would be great for us to focus on this kind of area for the technology part, for because it's really maybe blocking for some people. Also, great stuff. We started the working group around SER. What's the name? Binary stuff. Don't remember the name of the group.
Sorry, whose stuff?
The new working group around binary and compile Node.js.
Right, SE.
SEA, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't remember the full name. Yeah. So that's
Single
great.
executable applications.
Yeah. Great, thanks. So yeah, basically that's it. I do have a focus, but it seems we still have a lot of, let's say, key area we didn't address last year, like in the technology part, a TypeScript type, but we are working on that. Serverless also seems interesting. Yeah, around that.
Yeah, so no, that's definitely good. Like I think serverless, was it on our list for 2021?
It's the second one on the first list. Second one.
Right, okay. So
yeah.
but did we actually do a deep dive on that? I don't remember.
I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it made it to like the top. Yeah, so we should definitely do, this is a great thing that you've got. We should do a review and discuss the next steps on those.
Yeah, basically did that for this one and also for the community one. So it's almost the same. And this one is more dived into how a good thing about a lot of collaborator, and one I think key point which is not really shown here is I think we did had a lot of discussion about basically how to have cooperation being involved in Node.js and how to bring collaborators from companies. So I think we should need, and I think we discussed a bit with some people also during the collaborator summit and the conference just after that, how we can work with maybe the OpenJS Foundation to even the Linux Foundation, how to have a good way for company to see the benefit of working with us, having people maybe contributing, and how we can support that.
Right, yeah. Makes sense. But yeah, I think we're down to 3 minutes, so we don't have time to, but I think maybe next time we should plan to make that our topic for like the first topic we go into. That makes sense.
I think first one should be the survey, and this part should be the second one.
Okay, so if everybody can think about the survey comment there, then we could jump into that. And then second, we can do the follow-on from the collaborator summit. And it was great to get into the docs because, you know, Claudio, looks like you did put a lot of effort into that. It was good to spend some time
of course.
chatting. So, okay, anything else we should discuss or talk about before we close out for today? Well, thanks for everybody's time and effort, and we will see you in GitHub and next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.